Welcome into the Guilty as Charged podcast, Saturday Q&A. I'm your host, Alex. I figured out how to do the countdown this time. Last time when I was doing it with Arjun, I didn't know how to do the countdown, but I figured it out this time. So we are here to do our usual Saturday Q&A, but also we are raising money for Corey Layton, a Chargers fan who's dealing with cancer right now, trying to fight that. So all donations, super chats, anything we get today is going directly to that. And we also have the link in the description and on the screen here if you want to help out and donate. As always, I have my guys, Tyler and Arjun. So, Tyler, how you doing first?
I'm doing well. Cancer sucks. Fuck cancer and all of that. I just lost my grandpa to cancer a couple of weeks ago. So this is obviously, everyone knows someone who has cancer or is battling cancer. So it's really, really tough. So happy to help out wherever I can.
And we have Arjun. How you doing?
Good. Just wrapped up last week of college before Thanksgiving break, so just excited to just kind of relax and take it easy, and just hang out with friends. And then Michigan Ohio State plays next weekend, so that'll be fun. And then this weekend we obviously play it in a couple hours, but I'm doing pretty well.
Yeah. So you got Michigan Ohio State next week, and you guys get a Thanksgiving break. Thanksgiving doesn't even exist where I'm at, so that's awesome. that's the case. But yeah, I guess we should start with the sort of big news of this morning is that Big Ben is apparently going to take a helicopter on the last day and probably start Sunday Night Football as long as he does test negative. So what are your guys' reactions to
that? Sure. Listen, we don't have to worry about QB spies in this game, so that's good. Hopefully we don't have to worry about a QB spy. If he gets more than 10 yards this game, we're having a serious issue. But no, I don't see a significant difference between the two quarterbacks' arm strengths. Big Ben is a veteran, so maybe he can handle a blitz a little better or something. I don't know. But of all the players to be in this game versus out, I'm glad he's in, and I'm glad Watt and Fitzpatrick and I think Hayden are all going to be out. So if someone had to show up, I'm glad it's Big Ben.
Yeah, I don't think Big Ben moves the needle as much as Mason Rudolph does. I don't think he moves the needle aside from Mason Rudolph. Like the amount of points that he contributes to his team or the amount of wins, if you look at that, in a certain way, it's not that big compared to like every other average starting quarterback in the league. So, it isn't something I'm too worried about. All it probably means is it's going to be a lot of checkdowns, a lot of quick throws, and especially a lot of runs, which is going to be important given, the state of our interior D line.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be a huge difference between having, Najee Harris with Big Ben and Najee Harris with Mason Rudolph. It's just going to be, can you stop that guy? And, considering the state of the Chargers defensive line.
I'm going to add one thing. Like, I think Big Ben might be able to read Staley's disguises a little bit better. The too high to rotating to single high. He might know that a little bit better than Rudolph. But, I'm sure we'll talk about it later. But, if Staley continues to employ the super light boxes, especially against this offense, I think, it will be somewhat concerning, especially if they can't stop the run. Yeah. But sorry.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I think just in terms of like a guy that you want in the fourth quarter as a guy you want kind of reading defenses, like I think the common consensus would be that, Big Ben is, better than Mason Rudolph. And of course, I think Steelers fans are happy they don't have to watch Mason Rudolph. But at the same time, he is averaging 6.5 yards per attempt this year. Like he's not going to chuck the ball deep, but his responsibility is to be sort of a game manager. Don't turn the ball over. And that's sort of what Big Ben is at this point in his career. So we'll see. Tyler's mom, hi to Miss Shun in the chat, hitting us with a super sticker. I guess we should also talk about this from Jeremy. Any news on Bosa, Tranquil, and the rest of the fellas? So last we heard on Bosa, I believe he still is negative. So he's still, wrapped in a bubble and hope he plays tomorrow. I think Tranquil is unlikelier to play tomorrow from what I understood.
Yeah, seems like it.
Yeah, it seems like Tranquil is out tomorrow. And I think they said that Covington was the one who had COVID, so he'll be out tomorrow. I think Tillery probably also. But yeah, it seems like everyone else who's a close contact can play, as long as they test negative, I should say. But what do you guys think about the defensive line tomorrow with all the, kind of missing bodies, and what do you kind of think the effect will be with Najee in that running game?
Linval Joseph is the biggest loss, obviously. We kind of joked about Tillery being gone, that not making much of a difference in the run game. I think he's good for a couple of splash plays a game that could help, just put them in a couple of 3rd and longs or whatever per game. I'm excited for Fehoko, but he's lost a ton of weight, so I think he's going to be more of a pass rusher defensive tackle at this point. They're trying to work him away from nose tackle and more towards like a hybrid. So we'll see what his role is now that he's a few weeks into this transition. So we'll see. But I don't know. The Steelers' offensive interior isn't that great, so I'm not super concerned.
Yeah.
But we've seen this before, and we know how it goes at this point. So a little concerned there. Yeah,
I'm pretty sure Kevin Dotson's out also, and like he's probably like their best lineman, or from what I see online and Twitter. But I think if there's any game you'd want our D line to be not healthy, it sounds weird, but it would probably be this one, just because like the Steelers' run game, it has been heating up, but they're still not a good offensive line. It's still not a good offense in general. And like Big Ben has I have it right here. His average time to throw is 2.28, which is like a full 0.1 seconds faster than Tom Brady. So it's not like the pass rush is going to matter unless we are ahead by a lot, which we don't do. Like we don't. If you notice, like all of our games, we're either winning or losing by 1 score for the majority of the game, and that's just how it goes. So whether or not we stop the run, it won't really matter in my opinion. It's just like, can we limit the explosive plays? And it's going to be all screens and checkdowns. So if we can't make tackles, I think that's going to hurt us more than the D line being injured.
Yeah, weirdly coming into the week, it would be like if you told me Linval Joseph wasn't playing Monday, then I'd be like, oh, I'm really concerned. But I still kind of am, but I mean less so with the Steelers situation, Big Ben coming into this offensive situation, and also the injuries that they have on their side of the ball. So I think that definitely makes things a little bit easier for the Chargers. As Tyler says in his super chat, all money from super chat questions and super stickers is going to charity today. We are trying to help out at Boltgang Baby on Twitter, and his circumstances battling cancer. So any questions you got, throw a super chat behind them, and we will make sure to get to them. In that same vein, we have this for €5 from Sebastian Hortig. Hope I'm not butchering that. Do you think the inconsistencies from Herbert and the defense come from complex game plan? Greetings from Germany. Bolt up.
So as far as the defense goes, like the inconsistencies on defense, I want to say A, it's because it's early, B, because they have a personnel issue, and C, because they just haven't had both sides work together correctly for most of the season. We have a great secondary. Front seven isn't doing great. Then they have a good front seven after the bye, or at least improved one, and the secondary is hurt. It seems like this game they're getting close. Like the secondary does seem to be at full strength. Everyone practiced in full. I think everyone's ready to go, at least in terms of the starters, not Gilman and Webb. So I think they can put it together. Or Marshall, yeah. The problem is like the complexity of the defense. What we were looking for is those stunts, and I swear at training camp, Arjun, you can correct me if I'm wrong, it felt like every 3 plays there was a stunt, and maybe that's just they did it on 3rd down, or I don't know, but it felt like they were doing that so much more. And now we head into this season and we see that they're like middle of the pack, if not slightly below average in stunts. So that's been a bit of a surprise. Like I don't really think the game plan on defense has been all that complex. I just think they haven't quite put it together. It's a little early. They're lacking some players, both just because they don't have them and also because of injuries. But I don't think it's because of a complex defensive plan, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I think defense is just about execution. I think Staley's like, he is a pretty good teacher from what we hear and from what we read.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's like he's teaching it wrong. It's just like, first time in a new scheme, these aren't his guys. They were playing in a 4-3 before. Like there's going to be some, patches here and there, but obviously there's some players who stood out with like Kaiser and Linval. I think he's had a good year, and Derwin James obviously is the same guy. I think offense, part of it is it's not a complex game plan, but it's part of it is is that quote that Eckler said. It was like, the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season, we were only running plays that we ran in training camp. So obviously with all those repetitions, they're going to get those right. The timing's going to be right. Like there wasn't too many, or there was some like timing issues in terms of pre-snap stuff, but like they were, like the offense was moving the ball. Now, obviously after the bye, they have to install new packages, install new plays on top of playing 3 of the best defensive minds in football, plus Jonathan Gannon, who runs one of the worst defensive systems in football. So obviously that was their get right game heading into Zimmer, who kind of just shut that down. So I do think the offense has struggled from putting in new plays in what was already perceived to be a complex system. But there's other factors, you know, going on to why the Chargers offense isn't succeeding. And I'm sure, you know, that's been the topic of Twitter, Chargers Twitter for the past week.
Right. And I also think it's like Tyler and Steven have sort of demonstrated in detail, like, you know, they have these deep shots they're supposed to take on offense, right? And they're just not taking them, right? You know, so it's not like they're not there. It's just about execution at that point. And if you don't have a bunch of drops, like to me, dropping the ball isn't because there's a complex game plan. That's just because there's communication issues, sort of a lack of chemistry right now. But I don't think that's a complex game-to-game thing. And on defense, like, any game plan you come up with defense becomes immediately harder when you have 14 missed tackles. Like that's just the reality. So I definitely think that there is some, you know, aspect to them learning new stuff, like Arjun said, and having to sort of adjust on the fly. But I think a lot of it just comes down to execution so far. And that is what's been lacking in this last month. We have this from Jeremy. Arjun, hope I spelled it right. You didn't, but we'll ignore that. Why do you think we haven't taken advantage of injuries like how the Vikings took advantage of Campbell? The Vikings had major injuries in the secondary, and you couldn't tell.
That's actually a really good question, and it's something like I feel like this Chargers should be smart enough to do, but they don't. Like I think like Tom Brady, like he's one of the best. Like he'll know if you have a backup corner or a backup linebacker coming in, he's immediately going after them. And that's what the Vikings did with Campbell and who he was matched up against, whoever, Thielen or Jefferson. But the Vikings were starting like Bashad Breeland, Mackenzie Alexander, and like I don't know who's the other outside corner. Is it Chris Boyd or something like that? I like
something like that.
Yeah. So, you know, the fact that they weren't able to take advantage of that, I think is because, you know, I think Herbert's playing a little too conservative. You know, they're like, I feel like Keenan can beat any corner off the line if he wanted to. But what I think we're seeing is like teams are treating Herbert like Mahomes and Allen, and the fact that, okay, we're going to play quarters, we're going to play too high, and we're going to try to limit the deep ball, even though the pass is there. So it's not like Herbert. It's not like we can just target a corner, especially if they're playing a lot of zone. Like that's what the Patriots did. Like Keenan against like Jalen Mills is an easy win for Keenan all day, but the Patriots weren't playing man 3 weeks ago. They were playing zone, which kind of limits the opportunity to really like go after a corner. So I think that's why we haven't taken advantage of teams with bad secondaries, is because they're just playing a lot of zone, and you know it's on the coordinator, it's on Herbert to find the holes in those zones.
Yeah, and I also
they started off the season.
I was just gonna say, in terms of personnel, like you look specifically at the Vikings last game, they sort of have the people to make up for it a little bit. Like Eric Kendricks, I think, is, you know, for example, a huge help in, you know, the fact that the rest of the defense wasn't doing great, because I don't know how the Vikings would have defended without him. You know, you could say the same thing about, you know, the Pats and maybe some of the injuries they were dealing with. Well, you know, Matthew Judon solves a lot of those problems with the way he's been playing. So I think in that aspect, it makes it a little bit harder to take advantages. But I definitely think when it comes to scheme, specifically on offense, that you got to have guys that, like Arjun was pointing out with Tom Brady, that just like take advantage of those kind of matchup nightmares. So hopefully maybe that's something the Chargers do in this game and go at Trey Norwood a lot. Like I talked about in my, you know, sort of breakdown on the podcast this week. I wouldn't mind doing that. But I think you just kind of got to go after those matchups when they're available. And again, that comes down to execution.
Yeah, this week they may just unintentionally go after bad corners because no one's playing for the secondary for the Steelers. So it's like, okay, well, anybody's a bad corner. It's funny because at the beginning of the year against the Washington football team, They went after that rookie corner, Benjamin St. Just or whatever his name was, like 12 targets, and they just abused that guy. And he had an awful day. Williams, Allen, didn't matter who it was. They went after that guy. And I don't remember another time after that where they really went after another corner. They sort of went after Slay, but I don't really think it was like trying to go after him as much as they just threw it to guys that were being covered by him and they were open. So yeah, it's surprising to see them not really go after that. But they have an opportunity this week. Like if they're not trying to push the ball downfield against this secondary without Watt, without Ingram because he got traded, like there's really no excuse. I get that they're going to play well. The Steelers defense is going to play well. They're the Steelers. They're an excellent organization. It's an excellent head coach. That defense is always at least good or average, at least for the whole season. But this particular game, like try to get something going. So yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing them attack whoever the heck I think it's like a rookie 7th round pick as their backup free safety or something, or whatever Fitzpatrick plays. Like go after that guy.
Yeah, I mean that seems like it would make sense on paper, but then again, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if they just start throwing at the other corners next week. Who knows? I gotta say, the Shootin' Fam is coming in strong with all of these super chats that I just see flying by my screen. So hopefully that helps Corey out. And as Tyler's mom says here, quite eloquently, fuck cancer. We are on that train today and trying to help Corey Layton. So if you guys want to give us some super chats, so those will go directly to helping him. That is what this stream is all about. You can do that. And we have a super chat from NV Talent. Who says, morning, fellas. If we lose to the Steelers without Big Ben, do we give up on the idea of making the playoffs or making a playoff push, I should say? So let's start with Tyler on this one.
Mathematically, no, I guess, because the AFC is still kind of wide open to go over the rest of the year. But yeah, I mean, who cares? Like if they don't beat the Steelers without Roethlisberger, after not beating the Vikings without most of their defense, not beating the Patriots, who are a surging team right now, I guess, after not beating the Ravens, after beating the Browns, but beating a pretty banged up Browns team, if they could mathematically make the playoffs, but I don't really care. If they lose to the Steelers on Sunday Night Football, unless for some reason the Chargers put up 40 points of offense, and for whatever reason, because there's no defensive, let's say Bosa's out, Joseph's out, everyone's out, and Najee Harris just has 50 touchdowns or whatever, then maybe I would still consider it because the offense got better and I feel like the defense will come back. But like, no, if they lose to the Steelers Roethlisberger is playing. Sorry, first of all. But still, with everyone they're missing, if they lose to the Steelers, it's over. Game over.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point that I think our playoff hopes are I'm not going to say solely dependent, but our playoff hopes, depending on this game, is based on how the offense plays. Like if the offense plays really well and our defense just stinks, I still feel confident that we'll make the playoffs. We still have, there's various different strength of schedule metrics out there for free. I'm just going to reference PFF because, I believe in our model. We have the 6th easiest schedule going forward, including this game. And obviously, even after this game, we play the Broncos twice, Houston. We play a bunch of not great teams. I think the thing to notice is the wins that we thought were really good to start the year don't look as impressive now, right? With the Browns, the Chiefs, the Raiders are obviously kind of falling apart. But I still do believe in the team, and I made a video on this earlier when I first joined you guys. Most of the teams that make the conference championships, or I think all of the teams, have a top 5 offense. So you need to have a top 5 offense to at least make the conference championship, and to make the playoffs. I mean, based on how our defense is playing, you need to be able to put up points, and they have been a top 10 offense statistically, EPA wise, which is good. And the schedule will get easier, but I do think our playoff hopes won't be diminished just based on how our offense plays against the Steelers.
For sure. And I mean, the AFC is so wide open that one loss doesn't mean a whole lot. But I do think it is specifically one loss to the Steelers, because I think the Chargers have 2 NFC losses now, right? So with the Cowboys and Vikings. So losing to the Steelers would be a pretty big one, just because the Steelers are going to be one of those teams that's in the playoff hunt at the end of the year, particularly when you look at the wild cards. So I agree with what Tyler and Arjun said. Mathematically, still possible at 5-5. Not the end of the world, but there are a lot of metrics that would tell you the difference between 5-5 and 6-4. I'm sure pretty eloquently. And then I just, if you can't beat the Steelers with Big Ben, with or without Big Ben, I don't think that really matters. If you can't beat the Steelers without TJ Watt and without some of the key guys they're missing, then what are we talking about as a playoff team? Like, I mean, yeah, maybe you get into the 7th and get your, asses handed to you by the Bills. But like, to me, I don't know what the Chargers would really be as a playoff team, So to me, tomorrow is like the first must-win game of the season if there has been one to this point. I also do got to respect Arjun shilling for his company, PFF. I will have your boss Collinsworth muted during the game tomorrow, though, just to give you a heads up on that.
Okay, so. Yeah, I'm not going to comment on it, but I'm not going to comment on it. I'm not going to comment.
Smart man. Get the
we can talk about it after. We can talk about it after we end the podcast, but it's all positive stuff for all over.
Anyone listening who is an up-and-comer, you got to listen to Arjun and make those money moves, baby. Anyway, we have this one from Frank Blakely, loan officer. Seems like Herbert is rushing throws. Do you think it's based on interior pressure or disguising the defense?
I think it's just. I think it's disguise. Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of both, but I think it's disguise. I mean, Herbert really hasn't been pressured that often this season, but part of that is because he's getting the ball out really quick the past couple of games to try to like alleviate some of that pressure that he was facing against the Ravens and against the Patriots. But I think he's like that cover 0 look where they line up 6 guys on the D line, 2 linebackers in the A gap. That is like such a tough. I've never played quarterback, but that seems like such a tough like front and look to like decipher. Like if they rush 6, someone's going to be open. Like you're going to have a hot read. But if they drop back into coverage, you're not throwing to your hot read because it's probably a slant, and so you're going to have the linebackers in that hook zone. So I don't know. I think they're disguising it very well, and I just think Lombardi's and Staley think that's like Herbert can make those pre-snap reads, which it just hasn't seemed like he's been able to do consistently this year. And that's kind of hurt him, in terms of like KDOT and his overall, EPA per play and things like that.
Yeah, Herbert rushing throws. I don't know, because if you watch the Vikings game, there'll be plenty of times where his body language suggests that he's like, I'm going to go to the deep pass and it's not there, or it is there. He doesn't throw it. And then he goes to Keenan Allen and it just kind of becomes a lock. So I don't think he's really like rushing some of those as much. If there is pressure, sure, he has to rush it. Disguising, maybe. There's a couple of questions that are coming up that I'll kind of explain a little bit more. But sort of disguising. I think if anything, the problem is he's kind of locking on. It seems at this point it's like Keenan Allen. I mean, there's a point where he could have handed the ball off to Eckler for 50-yard touchdown, and he's like Allen in the flat instead for whatever reason. So, I don't know if is he rushing throws? Not really. I think he's just making the wrong decisions.
Yeah.
I think it comes to mostly disguising the defense and Herbert's reaction to that. There were a few free rushes that the Vikings got that I think, made Herbert make some bad choices last game, like that Kendricks one where he just came out the middle and then Herbert ends up tripping over himself when he probably might have had Mike Williams on that play. So that is a scenario or situation where I think you could talk about interior pressure and specifically his reaction to it. So don't allow free rushers. Very, smart, very smart football idea there. But I do think it has largely been disguising the defense, like Bill Belichick and John Harbaugh and, Mike Tomlin tomorrow. Great. They make no bones about what they're about. So I think at that point, Herbert just has to kind of make those throws. And if he's not, I don't think this team has this stacked roster to really make up for that. This one comes from Thomas Martinez for $20. Do you think that Herbert is being coached to target high probability throws a bit too much? It feels like he doesn't go through progressions as much and just quickly defaults to the high probability route against the coverage. This has been a debate all week about Lombardi and deep throws, and Tyler and Stephen have gotten balls deep into that on Twitter. So I'll start with Tyler on this one.
Oh, there's so much to unpack here. Do you think Herbert's being coached to target high probability throws a bit too much? Coach to do it? Well, yes and no. Like, I think sure. Like, I'm sure. Like, hey, if Keenan Allen, like, there are so many plays where Mike Williams could have had maybe a 50-yard touchdown, but Keenan Allen for 15 yards over the middle, I don't know how you could pass that up either. So, on the one hand, would you like him to go more explosive? Sure. On the other hand, I can't really disagree with all the times he'll take 15 yards from Keenan Allen. High probability throws, doesn't go through his progressions much, defaults to high probability route against the coverage. I'm going to defer to Arjun.
Yeah, no, I mean it's okay. I think so. We talked about it. Like Herbert's number one in the NFL in quick game dropbacks, despite having a bye. Do any of you want to guess who's number one in the NFL in terms of dropbacks to throwing to their first read on a given play?
I guess it's Justin Herbert.
Yeah, so it is. So Herbert's had 307 dropbacks where his decision was to throw or make a completion incompletion to his first read. So there's kind of like an overlap with the quick game concept, but first reads are also longer dropbacks or more developing plays. And Herbert's been number one in the league in that at throwing and having dropbacks to his first read. So that's kind of, it's not really concerning, because if the first read's open, you should take it, even if there might be a more explosive play down the field. It might not be as high of a probability as a completion as a positive play as taking the 5-yard or 10-yard gain. But I would like to see some more deeper progressions as the season goes on. The pass rush teams defenses that Herbert's going to face isn't going to be as good as what we've seen over the last 3-4 weeks. And so, I mean, at some point you can't just say that the offensive line is the issue. And, at some point you got to not man up, but you got to take more shots.
I get it.
You got to let Herbert go through his stuff instead of trying to protect the offensive line. I think, Herbert's too good not to elevate the play of everyone around him.
Right. I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense. And Steven chimed in with his piece here talking about the options and matchup-based offense when it comes to this conversation. But yeah, no, I think at some point he is probably, going to those high probability throws too much. But, Arjun also just talked about, teams covering Justin Herbert and, adapting to him like he is Josh Allen and like he is Patrick Mahomes. So over the course of his career, like we're seeing with Mahomes now, you're going to have to adapt and see what's given to you on a certain play if they're going to take those deep shot big plays away, right? So I think that part of it is sort of that matchup, and that part of it is just, Justin Herbert not going through those progressions so much. So, but that will take time as well. I mean, he's only still in his second year. So yeah, we've gotten quite a few donations in the, a lot of donations actually. Frank Blakely, I just checked, donated $200 to the GoFundMe. So
that's awesome.
That is great. And we've gotten so much from you guys in the chat. Again, this is all going to Corey to help his battle with cancer. And so, yeah, we will donate all of that right after the show. Jay Blue says he just saw an article where Ramsey said he's actively recruiting Derwin. I mean,
Good luck.
He might have said it. Good luck.
Yeah, it was it was in his press conference. I remember.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, I'm sure Jalen Ramsey wants Derwin James, and who wouldn't? But at the end of the day, the Chargers have a lot more cap space than that Rams team, and I don't think they have even close enough an option to be able to match that. I mean, I'm sure they could do some crazy maneuvering manipulation because good teams can, but Chargers have $80 million next year to help with that extension, so I think they could pull it off. And listen, I think Derwin James has been recruiting Jalen Ramsey too for 3-4 years, and that hasn't happened. So it's all fun and games.
Yeah, like Tyler said, I think this has to go the other way around, where Derwin recruits Ramsey. So we got to get him to create some NBA conflict within the Rams locker room. We got to get him to Jimmy Butler his way out of town and then go to the Chargers. That's how this has to go in terms of recruiting. But yeah, I don't think the Rams are going to make a big play for Derwin James at any point. They're still recovering from the Odell and Von Miller moves. So let's see how they play the rest of the season so far. I mean, Jeremy brings a great point in the chat. Not sure that we would be talking about the offense as much if people just caught the ball. I do think that is partially true, for sure, when you talk about the sheer amount of drops that the Chargers are having over the course of the season, for sure. I just am curious to see what you guys think. Maybe we'll start with Arjun on this one. What do you think the main cause of sort of all these drops is in comparison to last year?
It's weird because it's like drops aren't something that are stable from year to year when looking at a specific receiver. So, I mean, the Chargers almost lead. I don't have to. I can look it up, but like the Chargers almost leading the league in drops this year probably means next year they're going to go back to the league average, which will help their offense overall. But yeah, it is kind of concerning. I like last year. I thought sometimes it was like Herbert was just putting too much velocity on the ball. I feel like his touch has gotten a little bit better this year, and his ball placement's gotten better. They just drop it, and it is kind of concerning. And I think one stat that kind of like, kind of says how other teams view the Chargers receivers or in their offense in general. So I was kind of wrong about this when I said it a couple of minutes ago, but like the Chargers are second in the league in the number of cover one snaps played against them. So they're top 10 in quarters snaps played against them, but they're second in the league in cover one snaps at 28.4% of the time being played against them. And I think, Tyler, part of that is like, you, me, and Steven were kind of having that interaction on Twitter where I was putting the number of times a receiver gets open, right, per the PFF charting. You have Keenan Allen in the top 5 against single man, and then every other receiver is below 80 out of 117. And Jared Cook and Jalen Guyton are in the hundreds out of 117.
Yeah, that's bad.
I think that tells you, and Josh Palmer's is below 31% also, which is horrible. So that kind of tells you like no one really gets open outside of Keenan Allen. So people don't respect the receivers, so they play more man. And I think catching a ball versus man coverage might be a little bit, I don't know. Is it harder than catching it versus zone coverage because you're gonna have a guy on your tail? That could be another issue or another thing to monitor.
That's interesting to think about. I never thought about zone versus man making things more difficult. I have no idea. I'm sure there's a stat for that somewhere. I'm sure someone already has that stat. The only thing I could think of is that they just, for whatever reason, and I haven't been to so many training camps before, but this year they would have Herbert in with the starting offense for like 3 plays, and then they'd rotate out the starting receivers for other receivers. And it was like, why are we throwing to Austin Prohl, Jason Moore, and these guys here? That's confusing. So I think just, like not even necessarily that Herbert and those receivers didn't get a chance to connect, but like they were just off the field and they would go right to all these depth guys. And then how many wasted balls were there thrown to Austin Prohl, Tyron Johnson? At least Jason Moore's still on the roster, but like so many reps were wasted on other guys. They were like, don't need him. And of course, KJ Hill had so many reps and he's no longer on the team either. So, I think the team just not even getting the first team offense receivers, at least, in there during training camp, and then not even playing at all in the preseason, I think that hurts them. But then again, 2020 was the pandemic and they didn't have this problem as much. So it seems like Keenan Allen is kind of returning back to normal at this point. He was up there. Now I think even in like the double digits, if not ahead of Mike Williams. And now he's at like 8.5 drop rate, which I think is like 13th among guys with 50 targets, but it's like, it's getting better. So, the concerning one really is Mike Williams because he's injured. He's not separating. He's not producing, and he's dropping passes. Like there's nothing working there. And for him to be 80th against man, like in separation or getting open versus man, that's A, not good, but B, surprising because he was good at that to start the year. So what happened? I don't know. We got this lightning in a bottle for 3-4 games, and then it's gone. And I don't know what the problem is.
Yeah, I remember when Mike Williams was on his hot streak, because we could talk about this in the past tense, unfortunately now. People were like, oh, remember when you guys made fun of his route running and you were doing that all training camp? And then it's like, well, it turns out it's still a problem now that we're sitting here, unfortunately. So that's just...
Yeah, but then you have the weird stat where it's like he's open 80% of his routes versus the Vikings. So it's like, well, what the hell is the problem then?
I think it was 60. Yeah. I don't think it was ever 80. I think it was 60.
Oh, okay.
15 out of 25.
Man. Oh, okay.
Tyler didn't.
But yeah,
Tyler
still
didn't adjust for the. I was gonna say Tyler didn't adjust for inflation there, but nah, yes. Okay. We have Ross Ackerman for 199. Feelings or stats on Nwosu, I guess, going into tomorrow. I thought Nwosu had a really good game against Vikings. He was solid, sort of a comeback game for him. Just kind of was visible on every play and felt like he was in the system for sure. What do you guys think about him tomorrow?
I'm sure he'll probably set a high in tackles that game because they're just going to be running it so often. So that's possible. I think he will have 4 or 5 pressures and a sack. The question really becomes, is that sack a true sack or a cleanup sack? Is Roethlisberger, or is he just kind of standing around, not getting rid of the football, trying to scramble and it's awful? Then he gets a sack, or is it a true one? Now he is trending the right way. Noah's had a really good game, but it's 1 out of 9. And the other 8 honestly weren't that great. Now the Washington football team game, he had 1 really good sack, but I don't know. I think it'll be a nice 4 pressures, 1 sack. Maybe it's a year high in tackles.
Yeah, I mean, I think Nwosu's played all right for kind of the expectation I had of him. He's kind of playing at that level. I don't think the Chargers have been in a lot of like true pass rushing situations to where he can kind of just go one-on-one with a offensive lineman because he has to worry about the threat of stopping the run, play action bootleg, things like RPOs, things like that, because the Chargers are in a lot of those 3rd and short situations on 3rd down. The Vikings game, that was one of the few times where we had a lot of like 3rd and longs and they just couldn't, get the stop. Pass rush wise, he's kind of just been like nothing too great. He's been better than Fackrell, but in terms of his stats, but even then, only 10 of his 18 pressures were ones that he created by himself, and it wasn't unblocked or cleanup. So, nothing too special, but a lot of football left.
Right, for sure. We do have this one from Frank Blakely. So I think Nasir Adderley is supposed to return tomorrow, but he's talking about the drop-off in games that Nas misses is noticeable. Do you think he's made that next step, or do you think it's the talent drop-off from Nas to Gilman? I don't think Nas or Gilman played last game, right? I think they were both out.
I want to say Gilman played.
Oh, did Gilman play? Maybe.
Yeah, he did.
I'm confusing all the weeks that they've been out, but or he says probably combination of the two. So do we think Adderley's made the leap?
I think so. I think he has. I think one of the biggest concerns with him is his ability to tackle and his ability to come downhill and tackle, and he's doing that. And I don't think I'll say he made the leap or whatever. I think if we're talking about anyone who's more improved, I think it's Kaiser White, but I think he has definitely made a significant jump. And I think the only thing I want to see more from him is just some consistency of just being on the field at this point, which was kind of a knock on him the last couple of years, and he's still having injury issues. So again, the talent is there. He's looking better, but he's got to stay on the field.
I think he needs to improve his ball production also. There's times where he's just right there when the receiver catches it and he just doesn't at least make a pass breakup. I feel like there's times where he could, break up a pass instead of letting it being caught, or even if he doesn't get the interception, I would still respect him forcing an incompletion than allowing some of these crazy receptions to happen while he's right next to the receiver.
Yeah, I mean, I think the example, the Washington game from earlier this season was just sort of tough, but he also has his good games, right? So I think he has recovered from that in a lot of ways, but so it's gonna be interesting to see how he plays during the stretch of the season because they're gonna have to make some decisions in that secondary come the offseason. Obviously, Nas is gonna be part of this team going forward. But yeah, whether he's ready for a bigger role or not, I think that's going to be huge for the Chargers in general. We have these 2 super chats from Envy Talent. First, how would you address the RB2 situation if you wait till the draft? Which round, or would you prefer a veteran? So Tyler, we'll start with you on that one.
Yeah, I'm letting everybody go. I don't care if they're on rookie contracts. I guess Rondre could stick around because he's so many years left, but I'm not a fan of anything behind Austin Eckler right now. To me, I'm drafting a veteran runner, and then I'm signing a veteran runner, and then I'm going to draft a receiving kind of back, some sort of threat. I don't care what, but like a Tariq Cohen kind of type, or a Kylan Hill kind of type, or anyone who could just a little bit more dynamic, because right now it's one very, very dynamic running back who's very efficient in whatever he does, and then a bunch of crap. Like I need something, you know, again, like the Lombardi offense hasn't involved running backs in a lot of screens so far. I'm not really looking for that. But then again, would they have more screens if they thought Larry Roundtree and Joshua Kelly were anything as a receiving threat? Maybe. But I just want something, anyone else who can also line up there and run an angle route, or also can maybe be down the sideline. And then also just, you know, have your veteran running back who can actually run the football and get you 4 yards instead of 2.5. Like it's just really bad right now.
Yeah, I'm kind of over, you know, spending another day 3 pick on a running back. The only way I'd be okay with it is if they drafted an explosive runner. It's kind of like a subjective term, but like, you know, my friend Cage, he found that one of the most important traits for a running back coming out of college was his explosiveness. So like, how often does he gain a rush over 15 yards, or whatever you want to define explosive as? That's the most important trait for a runner, because that correlates with like rushing metrics, like rushing yard over expected or EPA per rush. So if they're going to go after someone who's explosive as hell, I'm all for that. But if they're going to go after another damn bruiser like Kelly or Roundtree, who are two of the most unexplosive running backs in the NFL currently, I'm not going to be happy, because they've spent 2 day 2 picks and it hasn't worked. So it's obviously time to look for new traits in a running back. And I'm sure Staley's going to be, you know, if he's going to be, you know, looking at outside sources for things like that. And I'm sure he'll notice that like there's a trend of drafting explosive running backs and getting some production out of them in the NFL.
Yeah, I just never understood from the moment they made the Roundtree pick why they thought they like needed a bruiser. It's like, oh, we need this big goal line back who's going to be slow. You know, we're 10, 11 weeks into the season now, and Larry Roundtree just got his first opportunity at one of those touchdowns. You know, I do think there is some question mark there. It's like, well, I mean, in the current NFL, with how you can get guys involved in receiving, you know, you have Austin Eckler, like, do you really need this big goal line back situation? And people will bring up like Eckler's fumbles from a few years ago on the goal line, but he's improved a lot as a goal line back from when he first started in the NFL. So like, I just thought the whole philosophy there was weird. And then Staley, of course, was like, hey, the one bruising running back for the Patriots who was good, I wanted to draft him, Ramondre Stevenson. So yeah, we'll see what happens next draft. I'm not against spending a day 3 pick, like Arjun said, if you have the right running back who has the right traits. Can I go back in time and tell Tom Telesco to go grab Khalil Herbert? I don't know if I can do that. Time machines aren't super accessible at the moment. But
let me know how that works out.
Yeah, I'll let you know how it works. But yeah, I think they might go for a veteran, just someone who's cheap. I think that you're probably letting Jackson... Maybe, well, you wouldn't be letting Kelly walk. You'd be cutting him. But yeah, certainly letting Jackson walk. Maybe trying another year of Roundtree, and then you probably need somebody else, because really they have 3 running backs right now, I think, in Bradwell, Kelly, and Roundtree, that are sort of all the same. So I don't know why they're really doing that at this point. SB Talks Sports talks about how do we fix the problem with the run defense. I mean, I guess I'll start on this one, but I think they sort of have been fixing it. They were better against the Vikings in that regard. They have been slowly improving. At this point, it's just about getting the bodies. And then, of course, as I say that, they're losing the bodies against the Steelers.
Right.
With, everyone that's going to be out, like Linval Joseph, Christian Covington, and then potentially Jerry Tillery as well. So I think that it's really just about getting everybody healthy, and also, it's a personnel problem as well, unfortunately, that probably will have to be fixed in the offseason, but we'll see how that plays out.
Play more teams that try to run wide zone outside or something like that, because it seems like against the Vikings, they were trying to go, wide, and Mosu and Bosa just played a really, really good game. But then you see the Eagles, they run inside zone quite a bit, and they're very good at it, and they crush the Chargers. And I think Arjun pointed out the Steelers are also a very heavy inside zone team. So, if they can hold up against inside zone and their interior holds up, awesome. Like, that would be a surprise. But, there's no fix. There's really no fix here. You got to draft some guys or sign. Or Khalil Mack might be available.
Yeah, no, I think you guys brought up all the good points. I don't got anything to add.
This one comes from Jay Blue. We sort of talked about this earlier in the show. Is it tank time if they lose to Pitt? We talked about, are they a playoff team? Obviously, no one in the NFL really tanks that explicitly, unlike the NBA. But, I mean, the Chargers are still going to be trying to win football games, like even if they're 5-5. Tom Telesco is fighting for his job. And as a result, Brandon Staley may be fighting for his. Like, I don't think there's really anything that you can like tank the team and just move on to next year. Obviously, if they had like one crucial injury that ruined the team or something, that's one thing. But no, they're not going to tank if they lose to the Steelers. They should have tanked last year, but then they went on that 4-game winning streak, and so that happened. But they still ended up with Slater, so not too bad in retrospect. But yeah, no, I don't think that they're going to tank if they lose to Pitt.
You can't tank. I mean, you can't tank. If the defense wants to tank and blow the games, that's fine. But the offense can't tank. They have to keep going. They have to keep fighting. I think their hill is almost climbed. Like, they're almost there. If they tank and just give up, and they won't tank. The Chargers don't. They just suck or lose games or underperform or rip my heart out, but they don't tank. Or if that's tanking, I hate it. I'd rather they just get blown out.
Yeah, I mean, they're not gonna tank. Like, this is a playoff. They built this team to compete this year, to compete in future years. Obviously, the process, but like, there really isn't any difference between like pick 13 and like pick 18, unless you're like trying to trade back. Like, there might be different values there.
Leatherwood.
Yeah, it's a good one. Yeah, but I mean, I saw someone mention like we have been getting smoked on outside runs. Contain has been crap. Like, I don't know what you're watching, but the Chargers have been doing really good against outside zone the past 3 weeks after the bye. In fact, they've been allowing a negative 0.313 EPA per play on outside zone compared to 0.201 on inside zone. So you want to force them to run the damn ball outside. Run the ball. I messed that up. You want to force them to run the ball outside because we have the edge players that can stop the run, and our linebackers fit the run better outside than inside. But if you force them to run up the middle, which the Steelers do a lot because they had a pretty solid interior, we're probably going to get gashed. And especially without Linval Joseph, it's not going to be pretty. So I'm hoping for a lot of heavier boxes against the Steelers. But you never know. I don't know what Staley's plan is for this weekend.
Yeah, and I just think like, there's no way that you could really tank. I mean, Telesco would be out of a job if he tanked. That's just the reality of the situation. But yeah, I don't know how you could even potentially process that at this point, with how the team is still mathematically alive. I will say, though, I might get to start writing draft articles and mock drafting if they lose to the Steelers team without Big Ben and Mason Rudolph, because after the 45 Patriots game last year, I did start mock drafting. That was my coping mechanism. So maybe I'll do that, but I don't think the Chargers will tank anytime soon at this point. This comes from Pitch, something we've talked about a lot. Do you think Kenneth Murray will develop as an edge linebacker hybrid role as the year goes on?
No.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Will he make splash plays? Sure. Like, he had that one, Justin Jefferson. The thing is, the splash plays that worked against the Vikings, I don't think he was blocked on like all 3 of the ones that he made. Which, I mean, hey, if you're unblocked and you have an opportunity to make a splash play, do it. So I can't knock him for that. But then there's other times where he's just like blocked out of the play, didn't know where he was going, tripped and fell over. And again, like, he can, I guess, okay, fine. Can he develop and get better than he was against Minnesota? Sure. Can he take more reps there? Maybe play the run a little bit better? I guess. But it wasn't super impressive. So I'm not going to sit here and say in the next 8 games or whatever it is, he's just going to develop and become an edge linebacker hybrid. Like, I'm sure he'll be fine. I just don't know it'll be like an actual role for him. Seems mean.
Oh, okay. I think that's
no, I don't have anything to add. Yeah.
Yeah, I think at this point with the whole Kenneth Murray edge discussion, like, I mean, he also still has to kind of play linebacker right now. Like, they're not going to have Drew Tranquil tomorrow. So, like, at that point, he does still have to play that role. We'll see how effectively he plays it. And obviously, he can have his edge snaps and runs at the quarterback, like when he saw Kirk Cousins last game and just decided to take off, like, at that point, and have some of those free rushing opportunities. But you can't really develop him in an edge linebacker role, I think, mid-season, because guys are going to drop, and you never know when you're going to have all your linebackers ready, because it's sort of been a shuffling door in that way all season. So I don't think at this point, maybe that's a goal to have next year, which makes me perplexed about what this whole training camp was, because then they're like, no, we always envisioned him this way. And it's like, no, you didn't. But yeah, so we'll see if that happens next year as far as the edge roll. But I'm not in any way expecting that to happen this year. And I think anyone who is just needs to get a stronger grip on reality. So yeah. All right. See if there are any more super chats that come in. And yeah, like you guys said, we are doing this for cancer for Corey Layton. We are raising money for him. So we have about probably 10 minutes left in the show. If you do want to drop a super chat or question, all the proceeds, as we said, will go to that GoFundMe directly after the conclusion of the show. So we will get that going. In the meantime, I will look for more questions.
Steven, where are you? If you're listening, where are you? I actually don't know where you are.
I don't know where Steven is either. He just told us that he was off this week. I don't know if he's at I don't know if he's at the Utah game. I don't know what he's doing. He's somewhere. Yeah.
He might be. It's a big game. It's pretty much for the conference, right?
I think so.
Against Oregon.
I mean, Oregon CFP hopes too. But I'm secretly rooting against Oregon because I like Desmond Ridder and I want to see Cincinnati get into the playoff for chaos. That's the only real rooting interest I have there. I just checked the Rutgers Penn State score and it's still tied, so we're not down 20 yet. Envy Talent. I kind of wish we blitzed more. Guys have any thoughts on that?
Drew Tranquil comes back, and I think that would improve just naturally because he's excellent at it. And then the secondary is getting healthy. So I think you could take more of those chances.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, I think we're actually blitzing at a good rate. We're actually blitzing. I'm pulling it up right here. We're blitzing at like about a league average, slightly above league average rate. Compared to Gus Bradley, who was last every single year. I'm sure a step up will feel like a mountain climb. But I mean, I don't know how much you want to blitz. It's not like we had lockdown corners the past 3 weeks to hold up on the back end. And so I mean, I don't know. I feel like Staley's scheme is built on like not having to blitz and rushing forward and just playing off coverage to keep everything in front. We have been pretty good when blitzing. We've had the 5th best EPA per play allowed when blitzing, which is really good. But that doesn't mean you blitz more because you're efficient. You're most likely efficient because you do it at the right times.
The right time, yeah. And they tried, man. They really tried to get after Cousins last week, and Cousins was just like, oh crap, Jefferson touchdown or 20 yards or whatever.
Yeah.
So, oops.
Yeah, just to answer Craig's question here. Hi, Craig. We do have no one confirmed out tomorrow, I guess. We do have Justin Jackson questionable, Trey Marshall questionable, Alohi Gilman, Linval Joseph, Mark Webb all doubtful currently on the injury report. And then you have your COVID situations, I think, with Covington, who's probably going to be out. And then you have Joey Bosa and Jerry Tillery, where we'll find out tomorrow. Or maybe we'll find out later tonight because that's sort of it's good that they're not traveling for this game and they're having their outbreak now as opposed to being on the road, because that decision would have to be made quite a bit sooner. So we'll find that out tomorrow. I mean, really, when it comes closer to game time. Again, from Frank Blakely, do you think we will ever give Hymas a try at right guard by year's end? Steven's wet dream right there. Or will we keep going with experience?
No, I think they'll keep going with Schofield. I don't think he's been absolutely dread. Like, if Hymas were a backup, like a true backup right tackle, we lost Arjun. We broke Arjun. The analytics have been broken. No, I think they'll keep Schofield in there. Like I said, if Hymas were a right tackle, then yeah, I think they could put him in there over Norton. But he's not really to them. He's their interior offensive lineman, their guard. I think he's just their future. What I think is gonna happen next year is they do re-sign Ibushi. I think his high-end talent, or high-end play, and what he was able to do so far this year is worth him being re-signed. But I think they're going to know that it's a good chance Hymas ends up being the starting right guard at some point next year, which I think could be great. Like as a keep Ibushi because the ceiling's pretty good there. They also have Hymas, but this year, no, I do think it is Schofield.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not an offensive line guy, so I wouldn't know too much about like development and stuff. It's just like whoever they feel meshes well or plays well, and that was a really good joke, Alex. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I don't know. Every time Steven talks about Hymas, it's like romantic, 5 to 10 minute interludes during our show. So eventually he probably will start over Bushi when the time comes. Or we'll see what happens next year. But I do think Hymas is more drafted to be a developmental guy, sort of the same position someone like Trey McKitty is in right now. That's sort of a kick the can down the road. And Craig
is Scott Questenberry? Is his contract up next year? He was 18 draft, right? So 18 and 21.
Yeah, he's up next year.
I believe so.
Yeah. I think they'll bring him back, but hopefully they do. Otherwise, it just kind of feels like a waste of having good depth and then never using it.
Well, I mean, they're sort of in a position where they can't use it. I mean, unfortunately.
No, this year, totally.
Yeah, fortunately or unfortunately, they do.
It's a good problem to have, pretty much.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that is a good problem. So yeah, Craig was talking specifically about the COVID guys. So yeah, no, we don't have any real knowledge right now about who's playing tomorrow and who isn't. We expect Joey Bosa to play, but other than that, there's not really too much we know as of now. All right. I guess if anyone has any final questions, actually, I think we got a good amount of questions today. Good amount of super chats. So we will wrap it up right here. So I'm, I don't know if Tyler's already calculated all the values. Probably not yet.
No,
but,
not even close.
But I know that Frank in the chat and a lot of people have donated directly to the GoFundMe as well as over here.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you guys sincerely from the show, from the bottom of our hearts for coming for someone who has someone in need. So that's a great thing we did today. Sorry, I'm just losing it at the end of the show. Stephen, we need you back. Anyway.
It's okay. We already have their money. We're good. We can blow it now. Who cares?
All right, I can bomb the end of the show now. That's great.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So yeah, we will wrap it up for today. Any final thoughts, you guys?
Yeah, I'm kind of hope that Jerry Tillery. No, sorry, I don't hope that he's out, but if he's out, I hope that the deep run defense has an amazing game and Najee Harris is like 0.5 yards per carry, just so Alex can open up the show talking about Jerry Tillery and all that good stuff. Bless Steven's heart for finding a thing to say about Jerry Tillery every week. On Twitter, it's like he'll say all the good things about the game at the very end. At the very end, it's like Jerry Tillery played it pretty well too. It's like I see you, just sneaking that in there.
Hey, to be fair, last week I did give Jerry Tillery credit for existing. He made a couple decent plays.
He did.
To be fair,
he did. He does.
But yeah, so Arjun, any final thoughts?
Yeah, you got to win tomorrow. Otherwise, I'm not going to be a happy camper.
Yeah, look. If you make me get on at 2:30 tomorrow in the morning and the Chargers lose this game, we're gonna have a lot of problems on the podcast, and someone might unfortunately get a little drinky because I don't know how I'll be able to process that podcast. So hope we have fun at the Steelers game tomorrow. Thanks everybody for coming out and donating, and we will see you guys next time.